It's Saturday, February 14th, and the social media landscape this week has definitely been a mix of romantic trends, high-stakes regulatory shifts, and a massive surge in AI integration. From the Super Bowl hangover to the global celebration of Valentine's Day, let's delve deep into some trending stories with social media commentators Amahle Jax, Thapelo Masilela, as well as Ntabi Ntlapo. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. You all looking splendid. I suppose you've had an opportunity to shower. Hopefully not at a hotel, but if it has been, then, you know, I'll be apologetic. Tell us about, maybe let's start right there.
Yeah.
You know, the water situation and Gauteng Premier Panyaza Sufi getting himself into trouble this week, saying that he heads over to a hotel when he's got water trouble. And Tabi, let's start with you. What stood out for you where this, these water woes are concerned?
You know, for me, the big thing is the fact that this is not new. We saw it with electricity, we're seeing it with water. These are basic needs. And then we have the president in his Sona saying he's going to form a committee, he's going to chair that committee. But actually, we need to talk about what brought us here. Who did what wrong? Where are the consequences? Who's getting to account for this? It's all good and well that there's a committee, but it should not have existed. This should not have happened. These are basic needs. So that's what stands out for me, that we sort of, as a country, we move along very quickly. Here's a problem, here's how we're going to solve it. But who caused it? Because once we know that, we prevent it happening again in future. So that was the big thing for me. And of course, that comment about going to a hotel, my goodness, I do wish all South Africans had that luxury of going to a hotel for a shower. Absolutely detached from reality.
Yeah. Jax, I mean, you know, the premise of you starting your your social media career really was on breaking down serious issues in a more palatable, and I'll steal that one from you, Thapelo, in a more palatable way for the people that followed you on or follow you on social media. I want us to talk about Sona.
Ooh.
I don't know if it's my algorithm that has changed over the years. You know, it's not just as vibey, but it seems the discussions around Sona have moved away from the fashion. I didn't get that. That was not trending.
Did you see the fashion?
I didn't.
Your son.
It seems it's moved away from fashion to more substantive issues. But tell me, let's start from the fashion then to the issues, to the real issues.
You don't know where they're actually going. You don't know if they're actually going to open parliament or if they're going to a gala. It was all very confusing.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, when you speak about Sona and it not being a trending topic, I think people are exhausted of the continuous promises that are made that never actually change. And I think when we speak about Sona, very rarely are we reflecting on the year back. We never get key performance indicators to say, we promised this last year, we're 6 months into it this year. But I genuinely think South Africans are over it, for lack of a better word, because it's the same thing every single year. And I think that was the sentiment that I got from social media, is that people are not bothering to watch it anymore. They're waiting for us to recap it for them. They're saying it's somebody said to me, I'd rather watch Big Brother than watch the Sona. It's going to be a waste of my time.
Don't they watch paint dry on Big Brother? I mean, it's quite mundane.
I'm not a consumer of it, but I assume you're just watching people living. That's more entertaining, or rather that's worth their time more than listening to the president address South Africa, which is gutting for me as someone who's...
You said something very interesting earlier, that there are two phrases that stood out for you when you were watching Sona. Tell us about those.
Establishment and task force, I think it was. We are establishing things, but we are not executing. And I think that's my big concern, is that every time we come to Sona, a new task force is being established, a new team, a new unit. Why don't we take a look at where the previous teams or the previous departments are at? Why don't we hold those people accountable? Because it seems like we're, you know, fixing a gunshot wound with a plaster with these task force. And why aren't we holding the people who are supposed to do those jobs accountable? And I think that's what's lacking in South Africa currently, accountability.
TP? The TJ, rather, Tabitha, the reason why we are seeing these buzz phrases like establishment and task force is because of the revelations that have come out of the Madlanga Commission, the ad hoc committee as well. Those were quite topical this week on social media. Tell us about what stood out for you and those who follow you on your podcast from these two platforms, and what people have had to say.
I think firstly it started off, sorry, happy Valentine's Day
Oh,
to everyone.
thank you. Thank you. How chivalrous.
So naturally it would have started with the suicide reports that came in from Sunday evening of this guy that they attempted a hit on him a week prior, or a week or two prior. Now he's committed suicide. So, I mean, that was the first shock of the week. And, I mean, shout out to everyone that's consistently and thoroughly following the Madlanga Commission, because people have been following and commenting. But also in that, I mean, it's also interesting to see that there hasn't been the fatigue in that Madlanga. Maybe it's also because there's a shock maybe every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the news cycle on Sunday, you had this suicide. 2-3 days later, there's another thing. And Tulani was also quite an interesting character on Madlanga. But then the next day, it's Sona and the task teams, which I understand why the president had to do the task teams and establish everything. However, we, on the other end, have to look at the element of, okay, what is he supposed to do? So there is generally that, those reactions of pro and con of, we've heard this before. I mean, we will, but also, what are you doing now?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Look, it is interesting, right? And for me, what's also interesting is how you've all, with your various backgrounds, have decided to break down quite serious issues pertaining to the country for your followers. Jax, why did you decide that you are going to, move from the very vibrant nightlife, throwing some of Gauteng's biggest parties, to breaking down what is happening politically and economically?
I think first it started off on my Instagram where I would break down stories and people would be like, this is so interesting, I understand it better now. But I think the one thing that happened was a conversation with my brother where he was just unwilling to vote when we were voting in the last national elections. And I realized just in conversation with him that he wasn't really tuned into what was happening in the country. And that was concerning for me. We're 10 years apart and he's the next generation. So I think that's what it was, and to get the youth more involved in it, because I think we have a lot of apathy right now because things are so broken. People don't necessarily feel like they have access to information or that there's something that they can do or even understand how the systems of this country work. So for me, it was genuinely about like, how can I give people information, and also that information mustn't be exclusionary through language. So let's use reality TV show references, Nini leaks memes, let's do things that make it approachable to the youth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ntabi, what are you forecasting will be some of the big issues, either, ripple effects from the past week going into the next week?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are still keeping an eye on the ad hoc committee in Parliament. They're going to finish their work in actually a few days. Well, they're supposed to, unless they get another extension, which is unlikely. But in a few days, they have to finish their work. And there's so much that hasn't been discussed. There's so much that they haven't even touched on. This week, we saw that testimony by Paul O'Sullivan. We all waited for it, and we only got 2 days. And one day, nothing happened really, because he wasn't asked questions on his statement. The allegations that we know were never answered to. So there's still so many questions there. And I think after the ad hoc committee, people are still going to be left with more questions than answers, really. And then we have this huge, massive story from the Madlanga Commission, particularly with that Mbenza story, where this man was killed. I almost said unalived. Well, unalived.
Not social media speak, right?
I heard it on radio the other day, though.
I say it too often. I say it every day for the TikToks. But he was killed. And there's so many people involved in that story, and none are being held accountable. So that will live for quite some time after this.
Yeah. Tapelo, very quickly, people are inundated with information. How would you suggest that, for one who wants to continue to be informed, that they break it down for themselves, with also just without being bogged down, I suppose, as well, because there is an emotional aspect to consuming so much news on a daily?
It's the guys here.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been a conscious effort from a number of people, from whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, that have come together to try and make things palatable, and me too. So I think that's the key thing, because sometimes following the Madlanga Commission, the ad hoc committee, even the president's speech, as you guys said, those can be tiring.
Yeah, I watched it at 2 times speed.
No, I do the same thing. That's a trick. So that really, it is all of our platforms, Palatable Politics, Jax, Miss Media, I know SMWX, Mighty Jamie. There are quite a few guys that have come together and are actively trying to make it more palatable.
And you're absolutely right. I think you guys are beautifully documenting the zeitgeist of this time, and quite importantly for the next generation to understand what it is that this time means. Social media commentators, Amatle Jax, Tapelo Masilela, as well as Ntabi Ndlapo, we will be back. Thank you very much for your time.